Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me to learn a little bit more about the value of regularly telling tales if we are to build team capacity in busy schools. Now, I share this image, and it might induce a certain feelings and emotions as you look at it. And over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to challenge those emotions, and we'll see where we are at, and maybe view this image in a slightly different light after we've worked through some of the ideas this afternoon. So, idea number one: what is the literature around growing team capacity in schools? Secondly, this idea of actually having discussions despite the busyness of everything going on. If you like, a more practical take on the literature, trying to translate that literature into what we might do in our schools. And then thirdly, well, what does that actually mean in a habitual sense, in a routine? How do we know how we can do this in our schools, but how do we do this regularly, these regular conversations? And I'll share a few thoughts on that. So let's have a look at the literature. The literature, team capacity in schools. The technical phrase here is collective teacher efficacy, and there's a lovely definition that we can see there that actually talks a lot about shared beliefs, this conjoined capability to plan and to execute actions that lead to certain levels of attainment. So these are all important ideas. And actually, what Hattie found in his meta-analysis is that this is far more important than many other factors. So it's a really important one for us to think about alongside other factors. How do we do that, though? Well, think about opportunities for teacher collaboration. Think about the situation. So our context, what is the context of maybe our department? And then how do we foster that psychological safety? And key focus for us, I think, is that frequent and productive. We need to have these conversations frequently, and they've got to have impact. So that's good to know. What else is out there in the literature? Well, Carswell talks in his paper about developing new to the profession teachers. He talks about the importance of collective accomplishments and this synergistic sense of purpose. There's a togetherness, there's a relatedness. That's important. And then thirdly, I'm just going to touch on Macbeth's work from the University of Cambridge and their really impressive leadership for learning model, where they link pupil learning, staff learning, community learning, and they have some lovely ideas about the importance of divergent thinking about teaching and learning, and also the importance of engaging in dialogue and listening to each other, and that the importance of that ongoing conversation. Okay, so those are three examples from the literature. What do we what are the challenges to that, though? Well, actually, the challenge is the daily job, isn't it? It's really busy. Schools are really busy. It does not matter what school you're in, you will be in a busy school. So what do we do? Well, we have the regular challenges, and we have the new challenges that crop up. Maybe they are external drivers or internal drivers. And the theory is that actually we need a wildly important goal to help us stay upright in amidst this whirlwind, and otherwise maybe we get knocked off our course. And I think that there's a collective effort here. Collectively, we in our department, in our teams, we first learn to lean into the wind together, and then sort of metaphorically we hold each other and we help each other to do that as a team, as a group. So what should our wildly important goal be for for our teams. And actually, let's go back to what Hattie said. Hattie said, what is the evidence of impact and student outcomes? All of the stuff that we do, what is the evidence of impact? So I've thought about this, and I've thought about this idea of us working together and this evidence of impact. And I've added to that a question. So if we pull these together, I think we can think about this in how do your team actions, the actions of your team, of each individual in your team, but collectively as well, how do they lead to learning evidence of learning? And so what? What does that tell us? What does that mean? What are our next steps going to be? And so to try and make this memorable, I've created this sort of mnemonic, TAILS, which also is a nod towards this dialogue and this listening and these different perspectives and this openness that I think is so important in school teams. So, TAILS, how are our team actions leading to learning evidence? So what? So now the third strand. We know that this is important, but how do we actually build this into our routines in busy schools? And here I would recommend that you think about behaviour science. Now, PJ Fogg has done a lot of work on this and written an excellent book entitled Tiny Habits. And he talks about various drivers for behaviours, for developing routine habits that you want. So firstly, we have motivation. That is an obvious one. Do we want to do something? But this often lets us down. So it also turns out we need to think about ability. Do we have the skills? So maybe we need to train people a little bit more. Do we have the tools and resources? So are we making this easy for them? And crucially, are we making the thing we're trying to do small enough and doable enough for us to actually do? If we get these two things right, then actually we can get above this action line. We're motivated enough and it is a doable enough task. It is small enough for us to do. There is one third strand to this though, and this is this idea of prompts. And what Fogg found in his decade of research is that even if we want to do something, and even if we have made it small enough and quite doable, we still often don't do it. And he discovered that actually we need to have a prompt, that sort of metaphorical prompt that nudges us into actually doing the behavior that we want to do. And this has led to this model, the BMAP model. We need to have motivation and ability and a prompt. Okay, so what does that mean for us? Let's look at a couple of different scenarios. Two different teams, two different departments that are maybe struggling to actually implement this TAILS idea regularly. We need these to happen regularly despite the whirlwind. The whirlwind will always be there. The whirlwind isn't a bad thing. That's the day job. But how do we help our teams to engage in tales, to tell these tales? Well, if we look at this team on the left, high motivation. They want to do it, but they just don't feel that they can for whatever reason. So how do we make the task easier? Make the task easier. Simplify that process of talking about the actions they've taken. Maybe limit the discussion length so it's not doesn't involve quite so much effort. This could be shorter and punchier. You could focus on certain sets or certain year groups. And I think the prompt there is have this as a standing agenda item, either every week or every 2 weeks in your departmental meeting. If you have the ability to do this, you've done all that, but actually your team aren't really that interested in doing it. Maybe it's because they don't feel safe enough to do it. What can we do to help them feel a greater sense of belonging? Well, we can give them a little bit more choice, a bit more autonomy. What is it that you want to talk about this week? Where do you feel proud of what you've achieved? Is one approach. More relevant. How do we make it more relevant to individuals' needs, to where they are wanting to focus this year? And also, how are we celebrating small wins collectively? That relatedness, that leads into that sense of belonging and that collective teacher efficacy. So just a couple of different ideas for you to think about. Okay, so the value of regularly telling tales, and this is how I think we can grow team capacity in busy schools. Talked about the literature, talked about this idea of tales, and we have looked at how we might think about how behaviour science can help make this a regular thing. I hope that image, you now look at that with a slightly different perspective and a smile on your face. It's been lovely to share these ideas with you. Do reach out. I am on LinkedIn if interested. Thank you.